And there is only one place we can really start in National 1 this week, and that is back at Old Bath Road last Friday night. And before we talk about the game, there was a record crowd in Berkshire of 1,829 people who turned out to watch the top of the table clash between Rams and Richmond. A brilliant effort from Rams, and it was a great occasion to be part of. But on the pitch, it was another narrow setback for Rams. Mikey Duda had given the Old Bath Road faithful some belief with his try with 8 minutes to go for Rams, but a first half converted try from Richmond's number 8 Sam Pym ultimately decided the contest at Old Bath Road. And what an absorbing contest it was. It went right down to the wire, but Richmond coming out on top. And what a start to an important month it was for Rob Powell's side. They remain undefeated, and they may have actually felt in the game that their 7-0 lead that they had at half-time could have been more given the territory and possession they had, but they had to show their resilience in the second period as Rams came fighting back as expected. But it was Richmond who held out for the narrow victory, and a brilliant win at that for the current league leaders. And up next for Richmond, they host third place Rotherham Titans this coming Saturday, and the Titans were able to keep pace with Rams and Richmond in dramatic fashion in round 12. Now, you saw at the top of the show how difficult Storm Dara and the weather conditions made it for kickers last weekend, but no such problem for Rotherham fly-half Corbin Ollivant, who landed a last-minute drop goal to seal a 15-12 victory for Rotherham over Blackheath. And it's now 5 wins in a row for Harvey Billy on side, and they are very much keeping in touch with Rams and Richmond as we reach the halfway point of this National 1 season. Now, down at the bottom, there were also some big results for Sedgley Park and Leicester Lions, a third win of the campaign for both of these sides, and a welcome victory for Sedgley Park in particular, who impressively defeated Roslin Park 28-0 at Park Lane. As for Leicester Lions, what a response it's been from Gareth Collins' side to defeats they suffered against Darlington Mowden Park and Esher at the start of November. Now, DMP and Esher are the current bottom two in National 1, but Leicester Lions have reacted with back-to-back wins against Sale FC, and their latest triumph coming against Dings Crusaders last time out with a 22-15 win at Wesley Park. So a brilliant response from Gareth Collins' side, and a very good weekend for both Leicester Lions and Sedgley Park. So what it means for the standings then heading into round 13, it means Richmond now have a 3-point gap over Rams at the top of the table after securing their 11th win of the season. But Rams will be fully aware that Richmond host Rotherham Titans this weekend, so that might be a game where one or both teams drop points in, and Rams will be hoping to pounce on anything that falls their way from that particular fixture. At the bottom, as we said, big results for Sedge and Leicester Lions, who have leapt ahead of Esher, who weren't in action at the weekend due to their game against Birmingham Moseley being postponed. But that is the state of play at the moment in National 1 going into round 13, and currently propping up the division and with a fight on their hands to stay in the third tier are bottom of the table Darlington Mowden Park. The North East side are in danger of being cut adrift at the foot of National 1 at the moment, as they sit 12 points behind Leicester Lions and 13 points behind Sedgley Park. Just one win all season so far for Garry Law's troops, that coming against Leicester Lions at the start of November, which we referenced before. But they have a really good opportunity to double that tally this weekend against Sedgley Park at the Darlington Arena. Now, this is Darlington Mowden Park's Christmas fixture, so I know the club would massively appreciate your support on Saturday if you're able to get down to the stadium, but the club would also massively appreciate your support in raising money for those recently affected by the Kirkby Lonsdale street fire, which occurred last Sunday morning. Now, for those who don't know, Kirkby Lonsdale is about an hour or so away from Darlington, but two of Darlington Mowden Park's first team players, Josh Ree and Sam Kyle Clay, lived on the street where lived on the street where a serious fire broke out last weekend, and unfortunately, the sheer impact of the fire meant they both lost their homes, and the valuables and everything that they had in their respective flats was unfortunately unsalvageable. So a really difficult time for both Josh and Sam and everybody affected by the Kirkby Lonsdale Street fire. And I know DMP forwards coach Joe Kane leapt into action to set up a GoFundMe page to raise money for everybody affected by the fire, including obviously Josh and Sam. And at the time of recording, the page had already raised over £13,500, sorry, and whilst we're recording this, it's only been about 48 hours or so since the page was created by Joe Kane. So an absolutely fantastic response by the community and the rugby family as well. And I know DMP are using this Christmas fixture on Saturday against Sedgley Park to help continue to raise funds. So for more on this, as well as a look at Darlington Mowden Park season so far, we caught up with Director of Rugby, Garry Law. I mean, first and foremost, Garry, how are both Josh and Sam to begin with? Because I know they're a massive part of DMP, and I know that must have been a very traumatic and frightening experience for them on the early hours of Sunday morning.
Yeah, definitely. It's something you wouldn't wish upon anybody, especially Josh and Sam. They're great guys, honest guys, and like you say, you wouldn't wish it on anybody. But especially Sam, he's had a tough time of it as well. His father passed away within the last month. He's had his dad's funeral just on the Thursday gone, and then we travelled down to obviously Plymouth, long trip there and back, to then return on Sunday, get a couple of hours in your bed, and then get awoken by the fire brigade. So yeah, it's devastating. Like I say, nobody would want to go through that. And they've lost everything in terms of they were neighbours. They didn't live in the same house. They were neighbours, but they both lost everything within the flat. So we were just trying to get the lads back on their feet. I was speaking to Sam on Sunday morning, a few hours after they had been evacuated, and he was literally saying, "All I've got is what I'm wearing now and my mobile phone." So obviously, put yourself in that position. Literally lost all your belongings, lost everything. Yes, I know insurances and all that kind of thing, but there's a hell of a lot more what goes into your household, like everybody knows. Like I say, these two guys especially are great guys. They've been good servants over the last couple of seasons for us, and like I say, they do make that travel over, which is you say it's about an hour. It's probably about 2 hours in the winter, just because of what the road conditions are like on the 66. So the commitment that these lads show to us every week on a Tuesday and a Thursday and a Saturday is immense. So it's only right and fair that we help them as much as we can financially as well. Yeah, the response has been brilliant. The club on Saturday, we're going to use obviously our Christmas game against Sedgley as a way to try and bump it up again and again help the lads and the other residents on the street the best we can.
Garry, rugby seems to potentially pale into insignificance when events like this happen. But if you don't mind, if we can just go on to kind of a season so far for the club, and maybe just start with Saturday's game against Plymouth Albion. I know you mentioned it at the start. It's a long journey for the club, probably the longest journey in National League Rugby. But what did you see down at Brickfields, down in Devon, that you can potentially take into the last two games before the Christmas break and going into the new year?
I mean, what we came out of it, look, attitude-wise, was brilliant from the lads. It was a little bit jovial at the start because literally we were having a huddle on the pitch and you were getting blown over and stuff like that, essentially. So there's a bit of joke about it, but look, we quickly said, look, this is happening. The game's going ahead. We need to buy into it now. And like I say, attitudes from there on in, and the endeavour and the physicality that the lads put out, we couldn't fault it. Yes, it's disappointing to go away from home, long journey like you mentioned, and come away with nothing. That has been our Achilles heel this season so far. We're not picking up bonus points, but look, we've got to grab what we can. Now, attitudes-wise, we're spot on, and that's something that we'll be literally drumming in again tonight when we go to training Thursday, and then into a big game at home against Sedgley on Saturday.
Has been a tough 3 months, first 3 months of the season, and outsiders looking in will see, maybe look back at last season's table and see you guys finishing mid-table, and now look at this one and see you guys towards the bottom. So I know it was, you know, you had quite a lot of injuries at the start of the season to key personnel, and you've got quite a young squad this season. But is that all mixed together to explain why potentially there has been a little bit of a drop off this year to the end of last season?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we lost a couple of players at the end of the season who were critical to us last season. Callum Pascoe at scrum half was influential for the last 2 seasons for us. So he's been a big loss. And there was another couple who have moved on. But like you mentioned, look, we've got quite a young squad. We've got a lot of new bodies who hadn't potentially played at that one level yet. So they've made the step up, and it's maybe taken a little bit of time to get an understanding of the physicality, but also the relentlessness of it, that you switch off for 5-10 minutes and you concede two, and you potentially concede 3 tries, and before you know, you're out of the game. Yes, injuries played a part maybe 6 weeks ago, but that's not an excuse. Every team gets them, and you got to ride them the best you can. But I'm a firm believer, look, if attitudes are right, the intensity is right, whilst the rugby, you might not be flying in terms of your attacking play, scoring loads of points. But if you've got the attitudes and you've got the intent and stuff like that, you can work with that as coaches. We can work with that at a club. Like you say, the supporters and that can recognise, look, these guys are still putting their bodies on the line. They're trying their hardest. Yes, there's parts of the game which are failing essentially, or we're not performing to the levels that they need to be in certain areas at certain times. If the attitudes weren't right and we didn't have the intensity and the want to win and the physicality, then we would be really worried, because you'd be going, well, what can we do? We've got people who aren't willing to put their bodies on the line. How are we really going to get wins? But as long as we've got that, it gives you hope.
Yeah. And I know, Garry, you'll be desperate to turn it round as quickly as possible, but you mentioned there kind of bringing some of the lads in who might not have had experience at this level before. And I know you spoke to the rugby paper at the start of September, and you said, look, this is where the club's at the moment. We've had to look away from maybe this level to improve the squad. So is there an element of you have to be a little bit patient with this squad at the moment, although you do want to try and get those wins on the board as quickly as possible?
Yeah, I think like anything, you have to be patient with a team as a whole, but also potentially individuals. And that one for me is still a very, very competitive league, where, yes, I do think there's a divide in terms of potentially the top 6 teams who are really desperate and got that desire to get to the next level. Then you've got your next crop who are competing, and will always compete. And then you've got the potential lower half of the teams who are wanting to stay in that one. That's probably the level where we're at right now, and where some of the other teams are. And the challenge is, how do you put a squad together that's going to compete? Every team's different, every squad's different, every setup from club to club. You'll see a big difference. So yes, we don't profess to be at the top end of that, and have the infrastructure and the squad depth and all that kind of thing to really be challenging. Like anybody, look, you put together a squad in the summer hoping to be challenging. You want to be, your aim's always that top 4. But you look at the likes of Rams and Richmond and stuff like that, they've got a great infrastructure behind them, got a bit more finance than potentially us. And it goes a long way. And like I say, they're pushing on and they're doing great things. Yes, I would love us to get into that position and have the infrastructure and the squad depth. But we are, like you mentioned, we are where we are in terms of that. We've got a smaller squad. We've got an untested squad in some capacity. We've got a lot of young lads. So yes, got to be a little bit patient. But we've seen enough quality in patches from all the players to know, look, we just need to back it up week on week, and we'll get some wins.
I know kind of last year, you know, it might be different to this year, Garry, but if I'm right in saying around this sort of Christmas period, you were able to pick up 2 home wins, I think, against Leicester Lions. I want to try and say Sale FC, I might be wrong, but it seemed to give you a bit of a springboard going into the second half of the season. Do you think that can be the same for you guys if you're able to get the win on Saturday against Sedgley Park?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, right. It was looking back at last December, that it was a crucial point for us. At that point, we had quite a lot of injuries as well, and we had a really good December. Picked up, I think, 3 wins or at least 2 wins and some bonus points, and it really kicked us on into the new year. And yes, look, momentum's everything in rugby. During a game, momentum's huge, but also within a season. So, yeah, look, I'm fairly confident. Look, we turn up on Saturday, we get a good win. That'll kick us on into Rotherham the week after, going to a difficult place. But at the end of the day, what do we have to fear? There's absolutely no point in fearing anything. We're in a position which right now is going down. We're at the bottom of the league, so if we do nothing, we're down essentially. So we've got absolutely no fear. We've got to just take it. We've got to rip into teams. With fine tuning of being clinical and taking away points within the game to give us the best opportunity. But yes, we've seen enough to go, look, we get this win or we get another win and it can springboard us into trying to claw back the teams just above us, which Sedgley is one of those teams.
So a big thanks to Garry for his time earlier this week. As he said there, DMP are very much up for the fight in National 1 and they'll be craving an early Christmas present against Sedgley Park on Saturday at the Darlington Arena. And as we mentioned right at the start of our chat with Garry, a link to the GoFundMe page to help raise money for those affected by the Kirkby Lonsdale street fire is in the description of the video, and it's also on Darlington Mowden Park social media channels and the club website. And if you can donate, it would be much, much appreciated. But if you can't and not in a position to donate, do continue to share the link as well, because it just shows what the community can do if everyone pulls together. So let's just have a look then at the rest of the fixtures in National 1 this weekend as we go into round 13. And we'll jump to the middle of the list where, as we mentioned earlier, league leaders Richmond host third place Rotherham Titans. Another massive weekend for both sides. But can the Yorkshire club become the first team to beat Rob Powell's well-oiled machine on Saturday? A big task, but are they capable of doing it? We have to wait and see on that one. And after losing to Rotherham and Richmond in successive games, Rams will be after a response at Rosslyn Park on Saturday. Park are fourth in the table, but back-to-back away defeats have seen them fall away slightly from the leading pack. But what a way for Rosslyn Park to haul themselves back into the title conversation if they were able to beat Rams. So a lot seemingly on the line there when Rams and Rosslyn Park meet at the Rock on Saturday. You may have worked out as well that all of the top four sides are in action against one another this weekend, with Richmond playing Rotherham first versus third and Rosslyn Park hosting the Rams fourth versus second. So how big could this weekend be in the dynamic of the title race? So much to look forward to on Saturday afternoon. Elsewhere, fifth placed Blackheath welcome Leicester Lions to the Utility. Blackheath for targeting a sixth straight home win in that one. Dean's Crusaders, who also have strong home form this season, entertain eighth place Bishop Stortford. Dings have lost just one of their opening 5 games at Shaftesbury Park, while Stortford are building consistency, aren't they, after 3 wins on the spin. So can they continue that form over in Bristol? Esher, who weren't in action last weekend, take on Plymouth Albion. Albion picked up their first win in 6 games last time out with a 24-14 victory over Darlington Mowden Park. But can they add to that in round 13? And Sale FC will be looking to arrest a run of 4 straight defeats when they welcome 6th place Birmingham Moseley to Hayward Road.